us all in. It's okay. Dan gripped my wrist with a white-knuckle hold and took a large step back. The dirt shifted again, this time crumbling down into the dark pits of the mine. I looked behind myself and couldn't even see the floor. Just take one more step back. 1, 2, on 3. Daniel didn't get to 3. The amalgamate flailed its antlers one last time and then began to charge towards us, but those first 2 steps were enough to crack through the ground and send the earth crumbling beneath our feet. The cold shock of falling backwards, never knowing how far you're going to fall or what you'll be falling onto, was a lot like falling into water. Cold, overflowing bath water. I remembered something then. That split second before my head hit the ground, I could see the tile on the bathroom ceiling where I used to live.
We're not frozen in place.
It was ugly, made up of all these random scratches and shapes. I stared at one for the longest time because it looked a little bit like a man's face. A man's face with a big beard. Oh, when Jennifer slapped me awake, choking on cold bathwater, her stark white face covered the view of the ceiling. After that day, I couldn't see that face in the tile anymore. Just no matter, really, how long I stared. Except there was no water this time. But the stone poking into my back was painful and cold all the same. I opened my eye to the dim, jagged opening above my head, a silhouette blocking the moonlight. It wasn't Jennifer. Daniel was panting, out of breath, and the dust was still clearing around us. I was only out of my mind for a few seconds. Shit, are you okay? He asked, slipping a hand behind my shoulders to help me sit up straight. Oh, God, my back hurts like hell, but... Oh, yeah, I'm fine. I squinted my eye up above us, the dust and dirt clouding my vision and stinging something awful. I half expected to see that beast had fallen in with us, but it was out of sight. Somewhere above us, but growing further away. I could hear the heavy steps of its hooves along the forest path. I didn't kill it, Daniel said, sitting down on the ground. In the pale sliver of moonlight we were offered, I could see his dirt-covered face, tan skin turned red with scratches and glistening with sweat down here in the hot human cavern. He wore a scowl. Sorry I shot your eye. I wiped my face, smearing the dirt that was already on my cheeks. It's fine, Danny boy. I didn't really have a use for it anyways. Painfully, I sat up on my knees and then forced my legs to stand. We should see how far this mine goes, I guess. You got a flashlight? He was pulling his out of his bag at the same time I was, but the light illuminated only more unpleasant sights. I expected stone and coal down here, but at first glance, all I saw were roots. The roots of the trees above had taken over, fighting their way through the dirt. An old minecart was tipped on its side, cocooned in the roots of a tree that had overgrown it, as if trapping it against the dirt. We walked quietly, tiredly, and with purpose. Any desire I had to investigate was gone, but a shuffle of sound from my right made my heart skip a beat, my hand almost instinctively turning the light to see. The roots covered every inch of the walls, but somewhere in there I could see the movement of something half-formed trying to break through. There wasn't just one. If I looked up close and for long enough, I'd probably see plenty of animals from the forest trapped in those roots, all of them in various states of decay, and all of them still moving. Some of the remains, both skeletal and were draped in bits of rotten old cloth. I felt another wave of discomfort as I recognized an old firefighter's coat, almost like the one I used to steal from my dad and wear around the house, only older, much older. What do you think caused them all to come back like that?
What's the hurry?
Daniel was flashing his light on the opposite wall. I wished I had an answer for him.
What's the hurry?
Honestly, I'm not sure anyone knows.
Cool it.
Maybe nature's just different here and no one thing made it that way. Daniel took in a deep breath through his nose, but in the dim light I could see him wince. It smelled awful down here. Oh, that was a terrible answer, he told me. I know. We followed the mine for about a mile, give or take. Maybe it just felt that long. We emerged, and a red glow in the sky signaled the very early hours of the morning, but the fresh air was the most welcoming thing. I took in a deep breath and coughed, tasting dirt and ash in my lungs. I looked like shit. I probably smelled like shit, but seeing the tree line behind us would have been worth 10 times as much dirt caked into my body. We followed the tree line back towards the long gravel drive that Daniel took to work every day, and the same drive where I had been dropped off on my first day of work. Back then, I had no idea what all of this would become, and when I saw the tower again, I thought I'd feel a heavy pit of regret in my stomach. I didn't, strangely. It's weird how a place like that can almost feel like home when everything around it is 100 times more dangerous. Finn was waiting at the top when we got there, looking like a disappointed dad who had been waiting up for us all night. We got near full, as I'm sure you can imagine, but in the end, I think he was just glad to see that we had come back from it all. Hell, he even congratulated Dan on getting a single shot in, telling us that they could hear the beast screaming all the way from the main road. You know, it seems like we didn't do much. I didn't get my eye back. We didn't kill that antlered fuck, whom I've decided, by the way, to call Big Boy from now on. But, like all things, I guess it was just a learning experience. Fed mentioned in passing that there's been whispers among his old friends at the police station of forming a new branch, one that he's hopeful he'll get placed in. Something about trapping and removing the creatures that are already in the woods, hoping that maybe putting them down off-site will keep them from coming back to life. We were standing in the kitchen at the time. I poured distilled water into the coffee maker when I asked him if they'd ever really get it under control out there. Sometimes you can't fight to win, he told me. You just fight until you can't anymore. That was a bit of lukewarm optimism I could get behind. Poured 2 cups of coffee and stepped out onto the fire escape, which we decided to keep open now that Finn forked over his security keys. The morning was cool and breezy, even if the view was garbage. Here. I handed Dan a cup of coffee, one without blood, this time. He just smiled and scooted himself over so I could sit next to him. You know, he started, we've got our number 30 now. Yeah? I laughed. Yeah, we can go on that vacation we talked about. I leaned my chin against the railing for a second, but it wasn't that comfortable. With a sigh, I decided that maybe Dan's shoulder was a much more cozy spot to lay my head. I was correct about that. Where do you want to go? I asked. I peeked up at him, shifting hair out of my eye as he cracked a stupid-looking smile. I don't know. I hear outer space is pretty decent this time of year. My laugh came out as a snort. Letting the coffee cup warm my hands, I took a long glance out at the tops of the trees, wondering how on earth we'd actually relax if we left this place behind. My gaze caught a flutter of wings. A familiar face decided to show up then. Bartholomew the bird, with its hazel human eyes, landing on a branch closest to us at the edge of the tree line. I watched him pick at a nest of twigs and grass. There was something in that nest, a squared edge of something black, a bit scratched and made of plastic. I guess we know where that missing cassette tape went. I stared at him, that shitty little bird. Then I broke contact to blink my one remaining eye. He winked back with the same eye. They're not all bad, Daniel said. He took a sip of his coffee but kept his shoulders still so that I didn't have to move. Yeah, some of them are downright rotten, but some aren't too bad, right? I gave a weak laugh and watched the bird hop away, glancing up at Dan again. Yeah, they're not all bad. I don't know if I was talking about monsters anymore, or just people. Some of them may have been just people. This is Evelyn McKinnon, and on behalf of everyone here at 104.6 FM, thank you for tuning in.
Windblade!
It started with a single insect.
Hey there kids, it's me, Mr. Creepypasta, and I have finally, in the description dump, Jerry was under the hood doing everything short of dark magic to get the engine running again, while I paced the road with a cell phone over my head, hoping for a single bar of... It started with a single insect, no bigger than a tic-tac, with wings tucked beneath an olive green shell. It marched haplessly across the counter towards me, or more accurately towards the condensation ring around the half-melted icy, the one I'd forgotten on the counter. My mind read... Hey there kids, it's me, Mr. Creepypasta, and I have some pretty good news. A little while ago, you guys heard me talk about Tales from the Gas Station Volume 1, and a little while ago I did... hoping for a single bar of connectivity and feeling about as useful as mail support for the better part of the last decade. Now that it was dead, I almost felt relief, like the machine could finally be at peace in the great afterlife parking lot in the sky. Of course, that relief was easily outweighed by the newfound panic of being stranded in the middle of an unfamiliar nowhere. Jerry was under the hood doing everything short of dark magic to get the engine running again, while I paced the road with a cell phone over my head, hoping for a single bar of connectivity and feeling about as useful as male nipples. This certainly wasn't the highlight of our cross-country road trip, but it wasn't the worst moment either. That particular honor fell upon the roadside marsupial petting zoo. To be fair, this was taking my mind off of all those things I'd left back home, which was the entire purpose of this surprise vacation, after all. That's what my friends called it. A surprise vacation. Their delicate phrasing conjured a much kinder image of what turned out to be a low-key kidnapping. I got home from my overnight shift to find them all waiting for me in my living room, intervention style. My roommate, Jerry, the mastermind behind it all, had 2 go-bags waiting by the front door and a map plotting our impending road trip to see the Pacific Ocean for the first time in my life. Jerry had been prone to these spontaneous, well-intended but highly irresponsible gestures for as long as I'd known him. At least, this time, he didn't try to gift me a stray animal he found. Normally I would simply say, thanks, and shut it down before things got out of hand. But I wasn't in the proper headspace to fight back. I'd just gone through what can only be described as a traumatic event. Some people close to me died, and there was a major misunderstanding with the new sheriff, but that's probably a story best saved for another day. Suffice to say, my friends saw that I was going through a rough patch, and thought it would be good medicine to get me far away from everything for a few days. They made sure my shifts at the gas station were covered until the end of the week, just long enough for things to settle down and go back to normal. I couldn't blame them for not understanding what was really going on. Hell, I only got a tenuous grasp on it myself, but the doctors assured me everything would be fine now, just as long as I stuck to the plan and took my medicine. After a few long days filled with tourist traps, roadside attractions, cheap motels, and car farts, it looked like we'd finally reached the end of our adventure. We were a few states shy of the West Coast, but low on money and even lower on time. This trip was as close to a success as we were likely to get. The car's breakdown was the final straw. I decided to give Jerry a few more seconds of vacation before breaking the news to him, which is why I was taking so long looking for cell service when I knew there was none to be found way out here. When I got back to the car, Jerry popped his head out from under the hood and said, "Okay, try the engine now." I turned the key to the sound of stubborn silence. "Nada," I announced. "Really? Fuck a doodle. I bypassed the engine switch. It's not the battery or the starter. Spark plugs are good, fuses are good, wiper blades are new, blinker fluid is full. Maybe it's out of gas," I offered, exhausting the full extent of my vehicular knowledge. "No, it's got a half a tank." He slammed the hood shut and said, "Well, I'm going to make friends with the tree. When I get back, I'll start taking the engine apart. In the meantime, you should build a fire and find something to cook. I might be here a while." "That plan isn't going to work." "Relax, dude. It's just an expression. I'm not really making friends with the tree," he scoffed. "If anything, I'm about to give it a good reason to be mad at me." "I meant, we can't set up camp here, hoping for a miracle, or a friendly passerby. I mean, what are the odds a good Samaritan would take the same shortcut we did?"
Different requires great confidence, and with awards like the IIHS Top Safety Pick earned by the 2020 Soul.
I slammed the door to the holding room and shut and scanned the area for weapons, but of course there was nothing. Without even thinking, I got inside the empty cage and closed the door behind me and locked it. Didn't take long for them to break the second door down. The creatures stepped into the room, their heads nearly touching the ceiling as they all three piled in and walked right past me to Spencer's cell.
Come on,
He approached them with a big smile and said, "What the hell took you so long?"
You worry about the
They all grabbed the doors to Spencer's cage and pulled. The metal bent and snapped free at the hinges, and then suddenly, Spencer Middleton was free. The creature stepped back against the wall, allowing him the space to walk past. And as he left the room, he looked back at me and said, "See you around." I stood in the corner, watching the monsters as they followed him out the door. They weren't here for me. And now they had what they wanted. They were done and gone. I waited there in the cell, staring at the door until I couldn't take it anymore, and ran to the toilet in the corner to throw my guts out. I had failed hard. And now it was only a matter of time before somebody found this bloodbath and pinned the whole thing on me. I still have the keys. I could make a run for it. Grab Jamie, make a break for New Orleans, find a good attorney, or even slip off the grid for a while. No chance for justice anymore. I'd lost the war, and now I needed to make a strategic retreat. I spit the last of the bile into the toilet and pulled the handle. Images of carnage and monsters still fresh in my mind while I tried to work out the plan. The next part was going to be rough, but I needed to get through it. Climb past the bodies. Find one with car keys, take another car. "Hey, detective." I turned around to see that psychopath waiting there, alone on the other side of the bars. What? Why did he come back? My words caught in my throat, but he didn't seem to mind guiding the conversation. "Looks like you ate something that must not have agreed with you, huh?" "Hey. Well, before I go, I wanted to ask you something." He guided his hands between the bars. When I saw what he was holding, I felt the cold shiver down my spine. "In case you were interested, my offer is still on the table. What do you say? Do you want to know where to find her? That fucker? I'd come back a pair of pliers." I crossed the tiny cell to where he stood, reached out and took them from him. He smiled a wicked smile, and I looked at the tool in my hands. Didn't let him see me flinch. I ran my tongue across my teeth, trying to decide which one I would miss least. I settled on one of my upper bicuspids. Put the pliers to my mouth. I can still feel the sensation of the metal touching my tooth. The way it shot up my nerve into a spot below my sinuses. As I pulled and wiggled it, trying to yank it free while Spencer choked on his own laughter. And when I finally had it detached from my jaw, the blood was pouring steadily. I spat a mouthful onto the floor and placed my tooth in Spencer's outstretched palm. Then I ripped a piece of cloth from my sleeve and I bit down on it to stop the bleeding while Spencer inspected it like a diamond assessor.
I'll protect us.
And once he was satisfied, he told me where I'd find Vanessa's body. I walked into the gas station looking and feeling like shit. A quick scan of the place told me that there weren't any customers in there. Behind the counter, Jack sat typing on his laptop. Toulouse leaned on the counter next to him, reading a magazine. When they saw me, I heard Jack say, "Check it out. The detective's still alive." Toulouse nodded and said, "Yeah, look at him go. Good for him." Before turning his attention back to the magazine, my stomach turned and I went straight for the bathroom where I started to dry heave into the sink. If there had been anything left in my stomach, I might have lost it there. I might even do this. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and I noticed that a man dressed as a cowboy was standing in the corner behind me. I spun around and screamed at him, "What the fuck? What the fuck even are you, man?" He was thankfully wearing all of his clothes this time, including a red bandana around his neck and a cowboy hat.
That's not how you
With a wry smile, he held out a ball-peen hammer and said in a calm voice, "Make good decisions." I couldn't explain why, but that weird sentence hit me with a sense of calm and renewed focus. I took the hammer,
inventory,
and I left the bathroom. On the wall behind the notice board. That's where you'll find her. Jack and Toulouse didn't seem nearly surprised enough by what I was doing, smashing a huge hole into the wall of the gas station with a hammer. I kept swinging, breaking the hole open, wider and wider, and I didn't stop until the wall was gone, exposing the dry, shriveled corpse of a young woman inside. From the looks of her, she had been dead for a long time. Her skin had turned gray, her face was unrecognizable, but her clothes still clean and new. A pair of blue jeans and a yellow t-shirt. A pair of blue jeans and a yellow t-shirt.
Keep going.
O'Brien was the first one on the scene.
It doesn't work.
She wrote the official report, which I got a look at a couple weeks later. An unknown man came into the gas station, broke a hole in the wall, revealed the corpse of a young missing girl. The body was dried of all blood post-mortem, which is probably responsible for the accelerated mummification process. DNA samples and dental records proved conclusively this was the body of Vanessa Riggins. But I knew the truth. That wasn't my niece. Spencer was always very clever in the way that he worded his offer. I'll tell you where you could find the body of a certain girl. He had been referring to the double the whole time. There was a funeral, but neither Jamie nor I bothered going. I moved some money around, got the
It's
kid out of town.
R2, not
I said where he is,
L1.
but believe me when I say that he's in a safe place now. As for my legal troubles, well, they actually went away on their own. One final departing gift from the ones in charge, maybe. Besides, it's too hard to arrest somebody for killing the sheriff, and the sheriff isn't dead. Yeah, I got a message not too long ago from O'Brien. Clyde showed up to work the next day, and everybody's decided to pretend he never gave himself amateur brain surgery. In fact, there's no record of anyone dying in that nice little peaceful town the whole time I was there. I had almost convinced myself that the entire thing was a stress-fueled delusion. But yesterday I got a package in the mail at my office, with no return address. The only thing inside was Donnie's old brown jacket. Then last night, I got a phone call. Hey, Uncle Eric? Yeah, this is Eric.
Don't push your luck.
You know who this is? Vanessa.
Oh, I almost had it. I missed.
Yeah. They told me that I could talk to you for a second. Where are you?
I got
I don't
it.
know.
Holy sh!
Some kind of hospital, I think. What is this? What's going on? I don't know. There's a man here who wants to talk to you. No, Vanessa, don't. Hey, detective.
Get it. Get it.
Spencer.
Damn it.
What do you want? Me? Oh, I don't want anything. I just thought that I'd let you know that despite all my objections, you're taking very good care of Vanessa. Please.
Get
You
it.
want to hear me beg?
Damn
Please. Even if she went home right now, no way anyone would ever believe that she was the real one. Even you. Right now, have your doubts, don't you? The line between what's real and what isn't starting to blur so much that there might not as well be one anymore. And that's what they want. They want you doubting your own eyes. They want you to wonder who's real, who's been replaced, because that's part of the attack. You can't trust the person next to you.
Thank
That's
you,
when they know there's only
guy.
one. It's a brave, new
Frog.
world detective. And if I ever see you again, I'll skin you alive.
What's the hurry?
I've tried tracking the number, but even my computer guys told me that it's a high-tech dead end. It's been months now since I started looking for my lost niece. I've used this time to prepare. See, next time that I go back to that town, I'll be ready. I won't get caught off guard. When I find her, there's gonna be hell to pay. Spencer isn't a complicated guy.
I'm gonna get
I
another
understood his
beer.
message good and well. Sure, it sounded like a word.
Oh fuck! I can get up. I'm drunk.
But it wasn't.
Oh, I'm so drunk.
It was an invitation.
Beer. Beer. Hot dog.
Seems all the other knights already have their hands full.
something isn't right. I was halfway through my Monday overnight shift, sitting behind the cashier's counter, eating a sandwich, and mulling over the thought process that had led me to this unsettling conclusion. Something was bothering me, and I couldn't figure out what that was. Why am I so anxious right now? My subconscious had spontaneously latched onto some small detail inside the gas station that wasn't as it should have been, and I couldn't decide which was worse. The mysterious nagging thought that was going to town in the back of my mind like a horny Pomeranian in a pillow factory, or the fact that something in this room with me was bad enough to still register on my weirdness scale. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging when I say this, but I've seen some pretty bizarre things working at the shitty gas station at the edge of town. I've seen things that have legitimately made grown men lose their minds. I've heard poor Arnold still won't leave his house without his security blanket and his emotional support falcon, Screecher. My point is, I'm probably a little desensitized when it comes to what the average Joe may consider abnormal, but this, whatever it was, had left me feeling particularly troubled. What was it? It's hard to put into words exactly how I felt. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately forgotten whatever it was that you came into the room to do? Well, it was almost like that. Or worse. It was a mental itch that I couldn't mental scratch. It's like a pain in a phantom limb. I was having a disconnect between my conscious and subconscious, probably just another lovely side effect of my chronic insomnia. I tried to retrace the breadcrumbs. I had a thought. That thought bothered me. In fact, I wouldn't consider it an exaggeration to say that the thought had shaken me to my core.
Got it.
And when I attempted to bring that thought to the forefront of my mind, it simply wasn't there anymore. My brain was straight up glitching. The store phone rang. And even though it was the middle of the night and I wasn't expecting a phone call, and most of the phone calls to the store come from a deranged psychopath hell-bent on torturing me to death after I shot him in the stomach, I answered. That's part of my job, and I'm a decent employee. Hello? The voice on the other end was deep and sonorous, like a film trailer narrator.
It's 4 a.m., Jack. Do you know where your children are?
Hey, Jerry.
Got it.
Fake voice.
Oh, it's so good.
What's up? Not much. Did you or Rosa change something before I came into work?
What do you mean?
But the gas station seems off. I can't put my finger on exactly why.
Sounds to me like you have what the French call "se traduction non fonctionne pas correctement."
What the fuck? What?
I don't know what that means, but I'm sure it's wrong. Look, did
Yeah.
Rosa attempt to clean the place?
Gotta listen to this shit. It's funny.
Rosa change something before I came into work?
What do you mean?
But the gas station seems off. I can't put my finger on exactly why.
Sounds to me like you have what the French call "se traduction non fonctionne pas correctement."
I don't know what that means, but I'm sure it's wrong. Look, did
It's wrong.
Rosa attempt to clean the place? Did you rearrange the lawn gnome display again?
First off, I never touched the gnomes. I did, however, light some incense and candles to realign my chakras, but then Rosa tried spraying some disinfectant to cancel out the smell because it was bothering her. But then, the disinfectant spray hit one of my lit candles and we found out that it was flammable, and we accidentally made a huge fireball. And then we attached the spray can to a lighter to create a poor man's flamethrower. We took it out to the front to try it out, and we torched a couple of watermelons. It was hella rad. I'm sorry, I forgot what your question was.
Never mind. Why are you calling?
Oh, I wanted to tell you that Coca-Cola used to make a coffee-flavored soda called Coke Black, and I just found an entire case of it. Also, I needed to know what time I'm supposed to come into work today.
I checked the schedule and informed him that he had the day off, to which he responded,
"Cool beans!"
and hung up. I took another bite of my sandwich. I looked around the room for anything noticeably out of place. Nothing jumped out at me, figuratively, or literally. Well, maybe this has something to do with the undeniable fact that the hallucinations have been getting worse. For a while, I was imagining that things weren't really so bad. In foolishly optimistic moments, I even considered a possibility that I was getting better. Last week had proven this was not the case. Last week had proven that the hallucinations were back. And here to stay. On Monday night, I noticed a strange black cloud hovering over in the far left corner of the store.
It didn't have much of a shape or a size other than that of an amorphous blob, bigger than a bread box but smaller than a blue whale. I watched as it floated around over the aisles, shifting in size and shape, as if it were breathing, smoky black tendrils that expanded from the hovering mass to grab the displays. It picked up a bag of potato chips and a can of sardines and absorbed them into itself, and then stopped and hung in a still suspension near the doors. You have to pay for that, right? I called out, prompting the black cloud to continue floating. It stopped next to an air vent in the ceiling and began to shrink and shrink. And eventually, the entirety of its body disappeared through the metal slits of the ventilation airway. I wrote up the inventory loss slips, and under reason, I checked the box next to theft and penciled in a note. Giant black cloud. Then I spent a few minutes drawing a sketch of the thing to post in the Do Not Serve These People wall. Things aren't so bad during the daytime, or when I'm not alone, but during those long stretches when most people sleep, the world gets weird. During my shift on Tuesday, I swear I saw a small pack of lawn gnomes dragging a possum by the tail into the drink case. But by the time I made it around the corner and crossed the store, they were nowhere to be seen.
Yes!
Later that night, my old friend Tom came in to visit. His pure white hair and frown wrinkles were starting to show off just how old he was getting. He drank a cup of black coffee and caught up on all the things that had happened since he retired from his job at the sheriff's station. Christmas thing.
That's not even fair. That's not even funny.
Carnival. He asked how his replacement was doing. O'Brien's hanging in there. I think she's finally starting to accept that not everything at the gas station is going to make sense. Tom grunted. It takes a special kind of person to work gas station duty.
Okay.
Weirdness. That kind of thing don't sit right with most people.
What's the hurry?
I told Tom about the book I was writing. I wouldn't be too cavalier about it if I were you, he warned. There's plenty of people around here that won't exactly be happy to learn that you're keeping records. I think it's okay. Most people think I'm crazy. Tom tossed his styrofoam cup into the garbage and asked, why would they think that? That's when the realization fell into place like a pallet of bricks. Oh, shit, I yelled. Tom, aren't you dead? Tom stretched a little before responding. So they tell me. Well? Well, what? What's it like? Tom gave me a sad look and answered.
What? I got the wrong
Dad's
one.
a lot like dreaming. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Most of the time, you don't even realize you're doing it.
So I'm getting ghosts?
Wednesday night,
I'm a
someone new
Ghostbuster
came
now?
through the doors. He had a long, pointy nose, light blue hair down to his shoulders, and a black pork pie hat with a red feather sticking out of it, a faded yellow wife beater showing off a chest full of bristle-like hairs. He wore thick glasses with Coke bottle lenses and a wide smile that showed off more gums than teeth. He asked if I wanted to see something really cool. I said no. But he showed me anyway by lifting a bird cage and setting it on the counter with a large, triumphant "Voila!" Inside the cage was a tiny live elephant, the size of a purse dog. It looked at me and made a high-pitched toot before digging its miniature trunk into a saucer of birdseed and shoving it into its tiny, adorable mouth. Okay.
Weird.
Come on,
That's
let's
it.
get moving.
What do you think? What? My creation! He exclaimed.
Beer.
I don't know, it's pretty weird.
Beer.
I don't see the point in having a baby elephant. It's not a baby, it's a miniature. He closed his eyes and rubbed his temples. His smile disappeared. Do you know how long it takes to create one of these things? Look, I don't mean to hurt your feelings. No, it's fine. I don't know what I was thinking. All they do is eat and poop. They aren't actually good for any farm labor. I tried cooking one. They taste like meatballs made of gristle and cauliflower. You know what? Forget it. He scooped the birdcage up with both hands and turned to leave. As he walked out of the store, I noticed that he was wearing a red and white striped bathing suit and flip-flops. It wasn't until the next morning that the thought finally occurred to me. Probably none of that was real. On Thursday, well, absolutely nothing strange occurred on Thursday. Sometimes that happens. O'Brien told me before my shift started Friday that they'd found what remained of Beau Pavilion, lying in the middle of the street a few miles from the gas station. On the one hand, this is good news. It means Beau probably won't try to kill me again. But on the other hand, if his body is back, that means that the portal to hell must have reopened. But there wasn't much left of him besides a scorched skeleton, and they had to identify him by his dental records. Officially, they're going with suicide again. I feel like the ones in charge aren't even trying with these cover-ups anymore. Saturday was a good day. Saturday was a day that I had been looking forward to for months. The doctors told me to take it easy and not overdo it on the first day. No cartwheels or jumping, no sports for a while, and maybe give it some time before I go back to driving a car. I assured them that I won't be doing any kind of physical activity if I could help it, and silently hoped that I wouldn't find it necessary to run away from anyone, or thing, anytime soon. Rosa showed up to work about 15 minutes before her shift was supposed to start with a big, excited smile on her face. And she ran up to the counter where I was seated. "Okay," she exclaimed with even more mirth than normal. "Come on out and let me see it, you bipedal SOB!" After all this time, I was back to walking like a normal human being again, more or less. And when I came around the front of the counter, Rosa slammed me in with a tight and completely unexpected hug that nearly knocked me over. "Okay, wow, I didn't know we were on a hugging basis already." "Oh, shut up," she said, as she detached and looked down at my legs. "I can't remember. Which one is it again?" Before I could answer, Jerry appeared out of nowhere and tossed a construction paper card onto the counter next to us and said, "Y'all sign this card? I made it for Mel." "Made Mel a card?" I said. "Oh, that's so sweet," Rosa chimed in before picking it up and reading it out loud. "Hey, Mel, sorry you got stabbed in the heart." Oh, look, he drew a picture of it and everything." "Yeah," Jerry said. "I'm just a really caring kind of guy." I could tell Jerry must have been in a particularly crafty mood lately. Been wearing a white t-shirt with the words,
"What?"
You seem tired.
a crack in the foundation by the cooler,
Do you take
since
sugar?
turned into a
1 cube or
pothole.
2?
The pothole, a collection of points from sticky spill-off, has become a mixture tar pit collecting countless insect corpses and occasional small rodents. Nobody ever complains about the aesthetic. By some providence bordering on the supernatural, the health inspector has repeatedly signed off on the business, always kind of ignoring the faint smell of some kind of
Ask the
mysterious
locals.
chemical cocktail that's the defining characteristic of the establishment. More noticeable than the family of mutated raccoons that lives in the crawl space below the grease trap.
Assistance.
We think they're mutated anyway. At the very least, they have to be inbred to the point of mental retardation. While the alpha, a 3-foot-tall son of a bitch named Rocco, has been spotted multiple times chewing on people's tires and has been run over at least twice. But he keeps coming back. The lingering smell, a sweet combination of honeysuckle, ammonia, vomit, who knows what else, has never been positively identified. But the prevalent theory is that it's coming from the cracks in the foundation, wafting up from the underground. It's strongest right after a rain and pungent to the point of tear-inducing if you get too close to the storm drains, where even Rocco and his clan refuse to tread. If you were to go inside, you might also see the bathroom cowboy. He exists as part urban legend,
Can't
part
talk to
urban
any of
fact,
them.
because even though he's never been officially confirmed to exist, we have several security camera recordings of a man fitting his description entering the building, heading into the bathroom and leaving. What makes him a legend is what people claim to see him doing in the bathroom. Some of the stories are only weird. Like the guy who went to pee only to see a man dressed as a cowboy handing out balloon animals. Or like the guy who says he walked into the bathroom to see a man wearing nothing but a cowboy hat, boxers, and boots with spurs, sitting at an old-fashioned stone sharpening wheel, literally grinding an axe. And when he walked in, the bathroom cowboy stopped what he was doing, looked up with a smile and the tip of the hat and said, "Come on, man. Come on with it." The guy, understandably uncomfortable with the situation, went to find an employee, but by the time anybody came back to the bathroom, the cowboy had vanished, bench grinder and all. Now the cowboy, that may or may not haunt the gas station bathroom, appears to follow a code of rules. He never appears unless there's only one other person in the room with him. He never hurts anyone, and he's always polite. Honestly, he doesn't seem that bad, especially when you compare him to some of the other things going on in there. If you go inside, you might instantly get a toothache. Strangely common phenomenon that nobody really understands. It should go away on its own after a couple of hours. If you do go inside, you'll almost definitely see me, sitting behind the counter, because I am the only full-time employee, and I'm almost always here. You may catch me reading a book, because for some reason the internet doesn't work way out here. And cell phone service is dicey on good days and non-existent on most. If you need to make a call, you can leave and go up the hill a ways, preferably back towards town, because the other way will take you out to the woods, and you don't even want me to go into all the reasons. That's not a good idea. Or you can pay me 25 cents a minute and use the store's landline. That arrangement was cooked up by the owners. I have to actually enforce it because they do check the phone records. Yeah, I'm sorry. Now, while you're here, don't be offended if I don't strike up a conversation, because if I'm completely honest, I don't always know for sure if everyone that comes through these doors is real or not. And if I had to acknowledge everyone in that place that could be an actual person, I'd lose my mind. We don't need any more of that going on around here. I guess the point I'm trying to make is this. Weird things happen to me working at this shitty gas station at the edge of town. I wish I could easily decide what was the weirdest thing that ever happened to me, but I can't. There's so many. I've seen a total of 4 coffins inside the store on 3 different occasions. I met at least a dozen people wandering back into town from the woods claiming they'd escaped aliens or a government conspiracy or cultists. And they had no money but needed to make a call. And could I please just let them use our phone before they find them?
I didn't quite catch your request.
But rules are rules. I'm not going to lose my job just because you didn't escape captivity with a little bit of pocket change. Then there's Farmer Brown. Yeah, that's his real name. He got mad at us and complained about the bulk feeder that we'd been ordering for him. He insisted something was wrong with the product because all of his animals suddenly had human faces. We settled with him by charging a significant discount on his next couple of purchases. He stopped coming in one day, and they found him, what was left of his body, inside a bedroom at his farmhouse, one that had been locked on the inside. As far as I know, they still haven't figured out what happened. Anyway, I guess I could tell you a story or two. First, I need to get ready for work. See, at the edge of our town is a shitty little gas station. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and sometimes longer. If you were to go inside, you'd probably see the tired cashier sitting behind the front desk doing his best to mind his own business. He's real. You may also see someone else. You may also see something else. If you are curious about the reality of anyone or anything else, including yourself, inside that small ammonia-scented flickering fluorescent collection of off-brand junk food, dirt, 4 walls, and roof, may I recommend that you follow the cashier's lead and mind your own business. I've been working at that gas station almost non-stop since I graduated high school. At this point, I doubt that I could quit if I wanted to. But enough about me. Let's get back to the interesting things, the gas station. I spent a decent amount of time yesterday at the start of my shift trying to decide which story would be worthy of being my first to document to the world. Any time I tell someone outside the gas station anything about what happened therein, I know what to expect. People don't believe it, or people don't want to believe it. Imagine the difficulty that I had trying to call the sheriff's station to explain that half a pig broke into the store and is currently running amok, breaking things and screaming with the voice of an old woman. Yeah, I meant half a pig. Yes, a pig. The front half. No, this isn't a joke. I'm at the gas station. What do you mean, which gas station? The shitty one on the edge of town. You must be new. Can I please talk to someone else? And she finally put me through to Tom. Tom is the sheriff's deputy. The one that drew the short straw all those years ago and had to come out to the gas station for the first time, back before his hair was all white. He's been in enough times to know that all I have to say when he picks up the line is, "It's half a pig. It won't stop screaming and I can't catch it." And he grunts, mutters something about being pretty frickin' weird, and goes out to help me catch it. Tom's a good guy. I asked around, but nobody knew where the pig had come from. This was back when Farmer Brown was still alive, and he came down to take a look and provide his expert opinion. According to Farmer, the pig had somehow been chopped down the middle, but miraculously none of the important organs were hit. Nothing supernatural about it, just really unusual. It stayed at the local elementary school as part of the mascot for the summer before a scientist and his team from somewhere up north offered the school $1,000 to let them take it. For science, I suppose. Anyway, I don't mean to ramble, but my point is that it's hard to believe some of these stories if you haven't been inside the gas station at least once. Maybe you have.
We're the only gas station for miles. We're close enough to some big crossroads. If you've ever been out driving in an unfamiliar part of the country and find yourself lost, it's not impossible that you could have found yourself in my door. Maybe looking to top off your gas. Maybe to ask for directions. If you have a strange memory of a weird place that somehow doesn't seem to fit with the rest of your memories, then there's a chance we've actually met. Yeah, back to last night. I was sitting behind the counter with a pen and a book of receipt paper, trying to remember the strangest thing that had happened to me. It still falls within the realm of believability. I've had plenty of things that happened to me that were strange, but so unbelievable. I won't even waste anyone's time ever trying to tell them. I call those the try and forget stories. When Carlos interrupted my concentration. And Carlos is one of the part-timers at the gas station. We have a long list of part-time employees. The owner likes to hire transients, drifters, hitchhikers, passers-by, and runaways. People looking for work, at least for a few days. I try not to get to know the part-timers. They come and they go after a few days or sometimes a few weeks. Rarely long enough to form any kind of meaningful relationship. But then there's Carlos. Carlos has been working here for almost a year now. He started it as a part of the prison work relief program, unloaded trucks twice a week. He was the only one of the 12 prisoners that didn't disappear during a freak snowstorm last December. But that's none of my business. Carlos did his time, and when they released him, he came to work here, cleaning the store and unloading trucks. He comes in 6 times a day for each of his 30-minute shifts. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm not exactly sure what he does during those shifts. The store is never clean, and trucks only come twice a week, exclusively during the daytime hours, as per an arrangement following the incident. Maybe one day I'll ask Carlos what he does for the owner. All I know is that he's the closest thing to a friend that I have here. And when Carlos approached me at my register last night, I knew something unusual was going on. He was sweating bullets, pale, and on the verge of passing out. He kept glancing back at that man in the suit that had wandered into the store and was standing next to the frozen drink machine. He told me that he needed to talk to me now. I told him go ahead. But he refused to say anything unless I followed him into the freezer. I usually hate to leave the front of the store unwatched. We have the occasional shoplifter. Plus there was that one time that Rocco got in and made off with 2 cases of cigarettes, but Carlos seemed serious. So I made an exception for him. And once we were in the sub-freezing safety of the walk-in cooler, Carlos asked me if I had seen the guy in the suit. I said, yeah, I saw him. He asked if I knew the guy. I said, yeah, I'd seen the guy around town. His name was Kiefer. He was running for some kind of office. I can't remember which one. And he stopped by the gas station every now and then. He drove an old black SUV that only took premium. I didn't know much of him from in town, but he was a local, definitely a local. His picture was framed in my high school's trophy case for one of those sports competitions that he'd won years and years before I got there. We only have so many things to be proud of, I suppose, but I knew of Kiefer. We weren't exactly acquaintances. I told all this to Carlos, shook his head and said, no, that can't be Kiefer. So why not? Carlos told me, that can't be Kiefer because Kiefer's dead. I killed him 2 days ago. His body's in the trunk of my car right now. That's where things started getting weird. Now, I really don't want to do this. I recognize how awful it is to pause a story at a place like this, but I'm about to head back to work, and I only just now was taking my lunch break, and I came all the way down here to the library to document the last things before I forgot. But I still have to eat. I have to change out those dirt-covered clothing before I head back. Did a lot of digging last night. Plus, I don't want to leave the part-timer alone with all those lawn gnomes until we know exactly what's going on. Oh, I forgot to mention the lawn gnomes. Okay, so I'm so scatterbrained right now. Like I said, it was a very strange night between the hand plants, Farmer Jr., and that cultist that wouldn't leave me alone. I hardly had any time to collect my thoughts. And of course, there's the Carlos situation. I promise, I'll come back. I'll tell you all about it. But first, I'm gonna grab some coffee. There are times when this world drifts so close to the fabric of reality that I can hear something calling me from beyond that veil. Sometimes when I get too close, I can feel that thing on the other side tugging at the corners of my mind.
I knew it.
I'm worried about Carlos. He doesn't seem to be taking this so well. In case you don't know, I work at this shitty gas station at the edge of our small town, and weird things have been happening for as long as I've been there.
I only started to tell some of my stories, and if you haven't caught up yet, I'd like to invite you to check out part 1. Now, when I returned to work after my post yesterday, I was delighted to find a stack of receipt papers sitting neatly in the register counter, with notes written in my own shaky handwriting. I don't remember writing these notes, but then again, I don't remember a lot of things. It is possible that I'm working too. The fumes coming from beneath the gas station are playing tricks on me, or perhaps it's just another side effect of my condition. At any rate, I'm not one to look at a gift horse in the mouth, or any other animal in any other orifice, for that matter. Admittedly, my handwriting isn't the best, and at times, the scratches on the receipt paper become nearly illegible. So if anything herein seems unbelievable, it's probably because I copied it wrong. Now, with that in mind, this is my best effort at the transcription. 7 o'clock. It's getting dark earlier these days. 7:30. Farmer Jr. came into the gas station tonight, asking about the hand plants. I told him that they weren't there anymore. He left his phone number scribbled on the back of a coupon for 15% off bulk pig feed from an online retailer. I think he's trying to send me a message. 9 o'clock. I think maybe some kids are trying to play a prank on me. I found a lawn gnome behind the pork rinds. I don't think much about it, and I put him in a box behind the counter. But then I found another matching lawn gnome in the soda case. I added this one to a box as well. It wasn't until I noticed the third and fourth lawn gnomes that I started to suspect something. I had taken out the garbage and found gnomes perched atop the branch of a tree next to the dumpster, staring down at me like gargoyles. I used a chair and broom to knock them down. I put them in a box with the other 3. When I got back to my desk, I found the note in my chair written in red ink. It said simply, "I'm in the walls." I don't know who wrote it. The paper smells like oranges and plumeria. 10 o'clock. There's a strange scratching noise coming from the tiles above the cash register. I fear Rocco and his brood may have infiltrated the building again. 11 o'clock. Farmer Jr. called the store. He asked about the hand plants. I assured him they weren't there anymore, and if they ever showed up again, I would call him. I think he's starting to suspect that I'm lying. 12 o'clock. One of the cultist recruiters wandered in from the community in the woods. They hate it when I call them cultists. I know the recruits aren't supposed to interact with the outside world, but from time to time, they'll sneak into town, never any further than this gas station, and they'll buy a couple of cigarettes. They aren't supposed to try and recruit new members until they graduate to the honorable senior cultist status, but this one isn't a very good cultist. I know they aren't supposed to have names, but I'm going to call this one Marlboro. I'll let you guess why. Well, Marlboro stayed in the store for at least half an hour trying to convince me to go back to the compound with him. They hate it when they call their home a compound. He tried to appeal to my logical side, but then I let him know politely but firmly that I was not interested in logic. I can't remember when I left. 2 o'clock. I found myself digging again. Sometimes on slow nights I let myself drift. My mind goes somewhere, and when I come to, I wonder where I was just now. Who was that controlling my body while I was gone? My body did those things I've done so many times before that I guess it's learned to do without me. My body restocked the cigarettes. My body rotated the frozen drink machine. My body scraped the mold off the bottoms of the ice buckets. My body emptied the rat traps, and somewhere along the way, my body found a shovel, went out back, and started digging a hole. Actually, I shouldn't maybe say my body started digging. I have been, or rather, my body has been digging this hole off and on for the last few months. Usually, I come to after a few shovelfuls. This time, I added another foot deep before I snapped back to reality and asked myself, what the hell am I doing? 3:30. I just noticed a door at the end of the hallway past the walk-in cooler. How long have I worked here and never noticed that door before? It seems disappointingly ordinary as far as doors go, except for the fact that it's warm to the touch and it feels like it's vibrating. I tried the handle, but it's locked. And when I go back to my register, I noticed a man in a trench coat standing outside beyond the gas pumps, just outside the reach of our lights, dangerously close to the road. I can't tell if he's looking at me, or if he's looking past the building at the woods on the other side. I wish he wouldn't stand there like that, still, with his arms reaching down past his knees. Scratching against the tiles on the ceiling over the counter is getting louder. 3:45, a man came into the store rolling a large white ice chest behind him. He had sunken blue eyes, wiry hair coming from his nose and ears, long bony fingers, and paper-thin skin revealing every blue and green vein beneath the translucent dermis. He wore a bowler cap and smelled like milk. I had definitely never seen him around before. He asked if we would be interested in partnering up with him. He sold ground meat at discount prices, but I told him our store doesn't do well with the fresh food category, recommending he try his hand at making jerky. And before he left, he scooped about a pound or so of raw ground meat from the ice chest into a piece of parchment paper and gave it to me as a sample. Once he had left, I took the meat to the cooler, where I found another lawn gnome waiting for me. I put the gnome into the box with the other 7. 4 o'clock. Carlos just told me something very strange about Kiefer. 4:30. There was a kid named Spencer Middleton who went to the same high school as me and Kiefer. Spencer was just a year ahead of me, but looked much older and acted much younger. I live in a small town, and small towns get bored. For entertainment, some turn to gossip, some turn to sinister pastimes. The latter often fueled the former. There were rumors around town that Spencer liked to torture and kill animals. Rumors that Spencer's parents and siblings always locked their bedroom doors when they went to sleep at night. The rumors didn't slow down any after the fire at Spencer's house, when Spencer was the only one to escape unscathed. I once saw Spencer gleefully stomp on a lizard, throw his head back, and laugh. Some short time after his house caught fire for the second time, Spencer lost town. The story went on that he'd gone off to join the army. I don't know what to think about that, so I simply didn't think about that. I would have been perfectly happy to never think about that. But after all these years, I'm forced to. Because Spencer Middleton just came into the store and ordered a cup of coffee. He's sitting in one of the booths, talking to Kiefer. Marlboro's back. He asked if I could spare some time to talk about his fake religion. And I hate it when I call it a fake religion. And I told him that he had to leave. He seemed upset. 4:45. Spencer and Kiefer sat around for a while and didn't buy anything but 2 cups of coffee. When they finally left, I let Carlos know. He had been hiding under a blanket in the walk-in cooler, although I can't really understand why. Carlos explained to me exactly what happened. He had finished his shift a couple nights ago, just left the gas station when he saw Kiefer's SUV pull over into a ditch at the bottom of the hill. Carlos, being the good guy that he is, decided to check and see if Kiefer needed any help. He says that when he pulled up and got out of the car, he could hear what sounded like a loud crunching noise coming from just beyond the tree line. Carlos went to investigate. That's when he saw something. When I asked Carlos what he saw, he just started speaking Spanish in a fast panic sort of way. I don't speak Spanish, but I nodded along empathetically. The only word I could pick up was Strega, which is the name of a liquor we carry. Whatever it was that Carlos was saying, it made him race back to his car as fast as he could and back out quickly, without looking. And that's when he ran over Kiefer. And Carlos is a good guy, but he was in a bad situation. He stopped long enough to get out, check on Kiefer, and confirm that he was definitely dead. There was nothing he could do to change that fact. It was an accident. Carlos was on parole. There was that thing in the woods, and Carlos had to make a decision. So he heaved the body into the trunk of his car, and he drove off. Carlos took me to his car and showed me the body. I can confirm 100% that it was Kiefer in the trunk of his car. Not just because of his unmistakable face, but also because of his phone and wallet that were in his pocket. 5 o'clock. I finally got tired of the scratching and pulled our ladder out of the storage to see what the raccoon was doing up in the ceiling. But when I pushed back the tile, the only thing up there was another gnome. That makes a dozen so far. 6 o'clock. The man in the trench coat is still outside. The cultist came back in, demanding an audience with me, insisting that if I would just listen to him, I would see that his reasoning was superb and flawless, and that I would be a fool not to join him in the perfection of logic and nirvana that is his belief structure. I agreed to listen to his pitch, if he would agree to ask the man in the trench coat to leave. Our hasty verbal contract in place, I steeled myself to listen. Honestly, he did make a few good points. But I suppose it's to be expected from a viral thought experiment strong enough to convince perfectly normal people to abandon their real lives and go live in that commune in the woods, past the shitty gas station on the edge of town. They call themselves mathematists. They believed that humankind exists to fulfill two moral imperatives: to decrease suffering and to increase happiness. A successful life increases happiness more than suffering. A decent life decreases suffering more than happiness. How good a person is can be determined by the spread between the happiness increased and the suffering decreased. Obviously, if the individual has a negative spread, that is, if they have increased happiness less than they've increased suffering, or if they've decreased suffering less than they've decreased happiness, and that means, very simply, that the individual is bad. Therefore, if an individual causes a tremendous amount of happiness and suffering, one can simply determine which was higher, and use this perfect rubric to determine whether the individual was good or bad. It's simple, right? But the mathematists believe that the world has been going on about good and bad in the wrong way. For eons, we've been attempting to increase happiness, when instead we should have been focusing on decreasing suffering. As happiness is a fluid concept, and the more happiness you create, the harder it is to sustain, as happiness has a clear set of diminishing returns. Suffering, however, is constant. Suffering results from happiness coming to an end. Suffering is pure and eternal. For a mathematist to be supremely good, they must simply end all suffering. That is why the mathematists are working on a bomb to destroy the entire planet. By ending all life on Earth, they end an infinity of suffering into the future. With every life they avert, an entire lineage of people that would be born into a life of suffering will no longer.
What's the hurry?
Every death is a preemptive mercy killing. Every happy moment that will no longer occur pales in the face of all the sad moments that are likewise prevented. And so, as Marlborough explained, their murder cult believes that killing is a kindness. I told him that his ideas were stupid, and he was stupid, and that now he had to go tell the man in the trench coat to go away. 6:30. The phone rang. Now this is strange for two reasons. First, because it was not the landline, it was the cell phone, even though we don't get cell phone service out here. And second, because it was the cell phone. The one I took off Kiefer's body. I'll admit, I was stuck in a bit of a moral quandary every in me. On the one hand, Carlos had killed someone. On the other, it was an accident, and Carlos's parole officer may not see it that way. I thought that I would have more time to figure this out, but when the cell phone started ringing, I knew I had to make a decision. I answered it. I didn't speak at first. The voice in the line was one I recognized. "You have something that belongs to my boss." It was Spencer Middleton. "His cell phone and wallet," I answered. "What? No, we don't care about that shit. We could buy more phones. We can get more wallets. You know what I mean." He was right. I did. "It was an accident," I explained. "We know. We want to make a deal. You give it back, we pretend this whole thing didn't happen." "Can we do that?" "Absolutely." 7:30. Carlos came in for his shift at 7, and I explained the deal to him. He wasn't thrilled, but as I laid it out very clearly, he didn't have a choice. We parked Carlos's Camry behind the gas station near the growth of hand plants, and made a point to stand far enough away as to not get our ankles grabbed. Kiefer's SUV drove up a few minutes later. Spencer was driving. He and Kiefer got out without a word, sized us up, and opened the back of our vehicle. Carlos popped the trunk. Kiefer and I stared at each other, keeping eye contact the whole time while Carlos and Spencer transferred the body from one vehicle to the other. Spencer had a tarp and blanket ready to wrap everything up. When it was over, Kiefer put a hand on my shoulder and whispered in my ear, "You done good." Back inside the store. It was almost daytime. And that's when the new part-timer was supposed to take over. 8 o'clock. The new part-timer's late, and I'm overdue for a lunch break. I made the best of my extra time here by putting price stickers on all the lawn gnomes, or ringing them up as miscellaneous grocery for $9.99 each. And I've already sold a couple. I'm a really good employee. 8:30. I went to the bathroom and I saw a man standing there with his pants at his ankles. He wore checkered boxers and a cowboy hat. He smiled when he saw me. Simply said, in a somewhat sing-songy voice, "Come on, man. Come on with it." I took the opportunity to ask him something that had been bothering me. You know, is everything gonna be okay? The bathroom cowboy took a second to think. Then he pulled up his pants, he walked past me, his spurs clinking against the bathroom tile. He stopped for a second. When he was right next to me, he said, "I appreciate it." Then he left. I honestly have no idea what that means. You know, that's the entirety of the receipt paper notes, but I did make a point to continue keeping a journal. I think this will be a healthy way of chronicling the weird events at the gas station. Maybe this will even help out with my condition. I don't know. The next time something strange happens, maybe I'll come back. I'll tell a little more. Until then, I guess this is to be continued. I'm sorry. Upon further inspection, I realized that some of the scribbles on that receipt paper may have been transcribed incorrectly. I also made some adjustments to the spelling and fixed a couple typos on that. While I was at it, I added another typo just for the observant reader. Lastly, upon the advice of some of my readers, I removed the part where I listed Farmer Jr.'s social security number and address. Also, special thanks to those readers that pointed out that Srega isn't even a Spanish word. So I asked Carlos about it when he came in for his fourth shift today, but Carlos simply looked at me blankly. He told me that he doesn't speak Spanish. I should begin this by saying that I am truly sorry to anyone who had heard Part 3, okay? I had no idea what was going to happen. The agents have assured me that every trace of the story has been removed from the internet, and that there's nothing to worry about, okay? If you were unfortunate enough to have heard Part 3, I beg you, for your sake, try to forget everything. If you experience nosebleeds, dizziness, migraines, or hallucinations, go immediately to the emergency room. If you have a recurring dream of an island made of song, under no circumstances should you approach or attempt to open that blue door with a painting of a crow on it.